progress when much of the traditional methods have now been rendered obsolete. To find its place in the new world economy, it has become necessary to unlearn old rules and embrace new ones better suited to the needs of the requirements of the times. Employers these days expect newbies to adorn hats for various roles, as hiring isn't as common as it used to be in the pre-pandemic times. To talk about the skilling, reskilling, and upskilling, which is the demand of the hour, we are joined by an esteemed panel of speakers, Mr. Samir Sathe, Executive Vice President, Wadhwani Advantage; Dr. S. Glory Swarupa, Director General, National Institute for Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises; Ms. Rachana Chowdhary, Founder and CEO, MVW Group; and Mr. Anup Jain, Managing Partner, Orios Ventures Partners. And to steer the session forward, we have Dr. Akhil Shahani, Managing Director, the Shahani Group. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're ready, I'd like to hand it over to Dr. Shahani.
Thank you very much, Sneha. I'm hoping to have a very fast, quick 1 hour session of insights and very, very useful points that hopefully the audience will be able to take back and use at home. So I'd like to start by, and again, what you said, Sneha, is that, with the whole country talking about skilling, upskilling, and reskilling, and we talk about the whole 500 million people in India are under the age of 30, and people complaining about the whole demographic dividend being lost because we don't have employable people, or just we don't have the right skills to move us to the top companies, top economies in the world. So what I want to start off with is basically get every panelist's impression or perspective on what they think about the current state of skilling, reskilling, upskilling is. So Anup, I'm going to start off with you. Your thoughts, your initial thoughts.
And having me over here. Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I was discussing with the Korean SME forum quite recently, and some of the data that I studied before I had a discussion in the forum was quite shocking. It said that 50% of India's workforce will need reskilling or upskilling of more than 100 days in order to be relevant in the next 10 years. India is changing fast. The national education policy has come about only now. It's just a policy document at this point in time. Implementation will take time. And we always knew that education in our colleges and universities was falling woefully short. And today it is generations apart, if I may offer that point of view. And unless we approach it with a sense of crisis, with respect to current workforce and future workforce, which is currently rapidly progressing towards adulthood and then employment, we will have this problem becoming larger and larger. And this is probably the only thing which is preventing the Indian economy and indeed the Indian MSME sector from being a large contributor to the world economy and to the Indian economy respectively. So really, the challenge is at our feet, and we need to take it with both hands.
Thank you, Anup. And it seems to be quite a systemic challenge. In fact, I'd like to ask Dr. Swarupa about her views, because she's actually works with a lot of MSMEs in various industries, and especially from the manufacturing side. So maybe you could share your perspective on what's the view of the industry, people who are hiring these unskilled workers.
Yeah, namaskar. Very good afternoon to all of you, the eminent speakers and the participants. Greetings from the Institute for Micro, Small, Medium Enterprises. My compliments to the organizers for this session, and I'm very glad to be a part of this platform. The session on skilling, reskilling, and upskilling, it is very much required for our country. After pandemic, it is really alarming. For the reason of growing unemployment, so this reskilling and upskilling, it gains a lot of importance. And from Government of India, Ministry of MSME, as a national institution, we are trying to do our best to cater to the needs of different stakeholders and trades and segment of the population to message across the nation, and of course developing nations also, because we do a lot of international executive programs. In the month of March 2020, the unemployment rate was around 18%, according to one of the survey. But in 2021 April, it is 29%. It is very, very alarming. And 53% of the MSMEs, either they have scaled down their operations or they are in the verge of closure. So this makes the nation or the policymakers and the developing practitioners, most importantly the entrepreneurs, to get into the upskilling mode and the reskilling mode. One important assignment what we have taken was with the Jammu and Kashmir government. The Governor House, they have come out with a very good program called Hausla, HAULSA, and they have taken our help. So we were with them, and they wanted to promote at least 50 women entrepreneurs as exporters under Atmanirbhar. So the terminology Atmanirbhar and the call was given by Honorable Prime Minister. We have to substitute the imports and we have to enhance the exports. So Jammu Kashmir, we all know that it is very popular for the handlooms and handicrafts, and many women, they are capable of doing something. So we conducted a very good survey. There was a screening, and we have identified 125 women. They know a little bit of home business, cottage business, or very tiny business. We have given them all the inputs related to entrepreneurship development. So how do they become an entrepreneur, stand on their own, go to a bank or a financial institution and place their product on an online platform? That was the inputs given for them for the last 3 months. It was started in the month of August, September, October. We did that, and from that we have shortlisted now 85 women, and these women will be given the mentoring. It is started already for 2 months, this November and December. Then later we are giving them all the inputs related to export. So we are preparing them how they can place the things in Flipkart or Amazon or any other platform, whichever Governor House or Jammu and Kashmir Trade Promotion Organization. They are also partnered with us. They are coordinating this program, and all the technical and skilling inputs we are giving. So this is one good program. We are very happy to do this. There is a very, very good progress, and all our sisters and mothers in Jammu Kashmir who are identified for this program, they are so much motivated and they are so much inspired because of the skills and the inputs given. I think definitely out of that 50, by next year they will promote their products in online platform and they can export. Likewise, after this pandemic or during pandemic, what we have done, I'll share during subsequent questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Swarupa. In fact, it's interesting. So, Samir, you actually have a wide view on skilling, because with the Wadhwani Foundation, you actually are focused on the issue of skilling, not just in India, but globally. So, what are the thoughts of the Wadhwani Foundation, and how do you see this whole issue?
Yes, I think it's a very troublesome issue for all of us in India, across the globally. Just to give you, based on the research that we are conducting at Wadhwani Foundation and the advantage that we are doing, we focus on several issues of unemployment. One of the biggest issues is that the entrepreneurs and the SMEs and the individuals are not skilled enough, and therefore they are not able to basically get the right employment. And even if they are in the employment, they are not able to be productive, right? So these are the two dimensions, so creation as well as fulfillment. Now, if you look at the statistics globally, across North America, Europe, as well as in developing nations, including in India, we have a very troublesome situation wherein close to 1/4 of the job roles are in dire need of getting they need to be reskilled completely. If not, then those jobs could actually render themselves completely ineffective, right? So we are talking about a large workforce. So we did a very sort of quick estimate in terms of how much of the value is at stake. And our estimates suggest that close to 3/4 of $1 trillion are at stake if we do not reskill the enterprises as well as their employees, right? So, given this magnitude across India, developing nations across the world, the next question is really which are the skills which are most needed to be learned, and they are in need of upskilling. The one key thing is that what we have realized in India across globally, it is far more difficult to unlearn than learn, right? Many of the individuals are facing difficulty in getting rid of their paradigms, their beliefs, what they have learned so far. Take an example of an automotive industry. If they don't really skill themselves in ESG, if they don't really skill themselves in Industry 4.0, many of their job roles include from R&D to really deployment will actually face tremendous problems in terms of becoming competitive. Right, there are certain skills which are globally needed to be upgraded. Data analytics, execution management, change management, basically look at digital transformation as a subject. These are the universal needs or universal skills which are needed. It is not dependent on the economy. It's not dependent on what sort of political government that you have. On the other hand, the challenges, on the ground challenges, if I were to really summarize globally, the biggest challenge is unlearning. The second biggest challenge is many of the enterprises are unable to fathom the impact of the programs that they are running on reskilling. How would I know whether the skills have actually been upgraded, and how would I know whether the skills have really resulted in a competitive environment? So these are at the summary level in Globe and in India, some of the trends that we are witnessing. Of course, in our questions and answers later during the conversation, I will elaborate on a few of these things. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Samir. Rachana, you're a classic entrepreneur, and you're probably at the receiving end of the lack of skills and the lack of talent in the market. So, what are your thoughts on the whole issue of skilling and reskilling, and how do you see it as an entrepreneur?
Hi, thank you, Dr. Akhil. Pleasure. Welcome all the panelists. We are delighted. Thank you, organizers, for this wonderful session. Great. Dr. Akhil, now all the data which we've been hearing from our dignified panel are really, really alarming enough. And all I'd like to say here is when it comes to on-ground applications, on-ground realities, and when we talk to entrepreneurs every single day, trying to figure out how to help them get scaled up, and that scaling up can happen from a 0 to 1 or a 1 to 10 or a 10 to go on, depending on the scale of activities, the organization, whether he's an entrepreneur, an individual, or it could even be an organization up to 10 employees or 100 employees. It goes on. We all know the MSME different levels of categories. We need to relook completely and revisit our ideologies as regards maintaining our customer relationship, contacting them, re-looking at our marketing strategies in totality, re-look at our corporate branding strategies in totality, because unless and until every MSME here realizes that there is a different way to communicate today, it's completely changed. It's the industry that has changed the maximum, and which will have a cascading effect on changes across the digital transformation journey of an organization. So we may need to, so that's the core thing that I'd like to discuss here over the next 45 minutes to an hour, is how do we relook at our marketing strategy in totality. He could be an organization at any level, at any place, at any business domain, but he needs to relook at it. He, she, or all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rachana. And before I move on, I wanted to sort of put a note out to the audience that you can all ask your questions with the Q&A button on the right side of your screen. So please do, because we have a very eminent, diverse panel of people here. So I'm sure there's a lot of information that they can share with you if you have questions. So feel free to put in your questions, and we will try to answer as many as we can at the tail end of this panel. But before I move on, I just want to talk a bit about my perspective, because the doctorate in my name is actually I've done my doctorate area of employability. In fact, I've researched this issue globally, right? And even though we keep on making fun of our own Indian education system, and we say, hey, it's limited, the government doesn't allow us to do this, the problem of employability is global. So globally, a survey was taken, and they said that 81% of employers worldwide are not happy with the quality of skills of college graduates. And this is including countries like the US, UK, developing nations where there's not much government interference in the education system. So what's the problem? It's definitely not the fact that our Indian education system is bad, but there's a more intrinsic problem there. So what my research discovered is that there's no standard definition of employability, and that's my big problem, right? If you remember what Peter Drucker said, is that what can be measured can be managed. Right now, there's no standard definition, no measure. So, for example, if I asked one recruiter, okay, what do you mean? What's an employable graduate to you? The recruiter might say, I want someone who will work hard without minimal supervision and get the job done. Another person might say, I want to hire a person with the right ambition, the right potential to be a leader. A third person might say, my company is a car that's running very fast and this guy's like the spare wheel I can put in without any problems. What do those mean? Those are just feelings and qualitative statements, but there's actually no standard definition. So the other part of the side is that most education institutions say, if you're not giving us a to train people towards, what do we train them towards? So at the moment, you have education institutions who say that our standard for quality employability is making sure these kids pass exams, maybe do their assignments, and that's it. That's our measure of quality. But the industry people are saying, no, we don't want that. But the industry people are not even saying what they want. So what happens essentially is that most industry employees, especially at the entry level, are really looking for a combination of soft skills, right? And soft skills are very, very amorphous term that there are 100 versions of it. However, my research has come up with 5 entry-level soft skills that they want every entry-level candidate to have. And this is lowest common denominator. It works regardless if you're on the finance industry, media industry, digital industry. Basically, they want people who can communicate very well across all countries, people who can work well with others in teams, people who have strong problem-solving ability, critical thinking, and an attitude that is proactive and professional, conscientious. That's it. Interestingly, no employer wants a creative maverick who's a genius. They just want someone who'll come in, get the job done. And they said, and most recruiters have told me, you give me someone with these 5 parameters, it'll work very well. So, and of course, my own education group, we run an education platform and we have colleges as well. We've come up with ways of training these parameters, but I'll get into that later. The other side is, and this is especially for recruiters themselves, is that most recruiters, when they hire at the entry level, they don't know what they're hiring, because the thing is that if they have to interview, let's say 50, they have no idea who the candidate is. So there's a concept called signaling theory, right? Signaling theory says that as a recruiter, you have no idea who the candidate is. So therefore, what are the signals that you can read to give you a sense of how good or bad the candidate is? So for example, one signal could be, okay, which college does this candidate come from? So obviously the kids from the IIMs and the Harvards, that's a strong signal, so that's good. But unfortunately, that's not 99% of the kids. So you can't really use that as a signal. The second thing is, what can you read from the CV? Unfortunately, most colleges are now smart enough to train out their kids to come up with good CVs. So you have masses of CVs have the same template. So that's not a good signal anymore. So most of the time, you have a recruiter says that basically, I will hire on gut feel based on the interview. And basically, when they look at an interview, what happens is that the student is trained to dress well and answer the 20 most common questions which are asked. What really gets the recruiter to hire the student is basically kids speak well with confidence. And secondly, more importantly, and they never say this, is this the sort of person that'll fit in culturally to my company? So therefore, if I'm hiring someone for a digital marketing ad agency, there's a certain culture aspect that I want this kid to have, versus if I'm a serious button-down investment banker, or if I'm a manufacturing company. So it's really, can the kid speak confidently? Does he answer the right questions? More importantly, is there a cultural fit? Again, there's no standard. So the thing is that, so this is what my research has discovered, and again, I'm happy to discuss it further in the panel, but this is the current framework that basically the recruiters are speaking a different language, the colleges are speaking a different language, and there's no common measure that people can use or common signals that they can use to ensure that candidates are employable. So let's sort of move on to the first set of questions. So Anup, obviously we've been hearing about the edtech industry in India, and there are a lot of very smart entrepreneurs who are coming up with solutions and who are being very well funded. So what's happening in the Indian edtech space? How are they solving the skilling problem, and what's actually working, what's not working? Valuations aside.
That's sure. So edtech is a very large sector, as we all know. And I draw some analogy from China. Indian parents, very similar to Chinese parents, see this as a passport to prosperity, passport to mobility. And therefore, any investment done in this space by the family is very welcome. It is seen as an investment. It is not seen as an expense. Uh, Indian, schooling system, which is the K-12 ecosystem, that I think has been, sort of proposed to be revamped to produce less of, rote learning experts to more of people who are creative and thinkers. Because if you look at it, in the times to come, and even today, if you look at your own smartphones, most of the repetitive tasks will be done by machines and not humans because there is no need. So these can be programmed through software and can be set in motion. And today, even voices, even actions can be, even some very important actions in our life. Financial actions can be mimicked and can be programmed and can be replicated by machines. You don't need bankers today. How many of us have gone to an ATM in the last 15 days, and how much money did we actually withdraw as a percentage of our net worth as compared to what 50 years ago our parents used to do? How many of us actually visited a bank to do banking? So the answers lie within, right? There is no need for front row staff in common repetitive functions. They can all be automated. So what is going to emerge in the future as skills of the future is going to be what cannot be done by machines, which is thinking and problem solving and creating things which have not been previously created to solve our largest problems. Now, these are all skill sets, and these are hard skill sets. They all have to be taught in our schools. Very often we hear of K-12 curriculum, being compared to the IB curriculum. In fact, there will be many people on this call who will be, taking a call or would have already taken the call to send their children to IB schools versus, the traditional, if I may call it, legacy curriculum schools already. So K-12, we are seeing tremendous activity in that space. We all know about Byju's. It focuses on K-12. There are numerous test preparations because government jobs and many other private entrances, engineering colleges and medical colleges. This is a very ripe field. But one of the largest fields that is emerging today is that of upskilling. And upskilling which impacts MSMEs directly. The larger MNCs, they can afford to keep a new candidate on the roster for 90 days and not expect any return from that person until they are fully trained into the company's processes. And in fact, the real hidden reason is that they are actually filling up the gap between what the candidate leaves the institute with and what the industry actually requires. And this gap is really widening. And MSME cannot afford to do so. They want the candidate to perform right from day one. So you need to have upskilling, you need to have reskilling, and we are seeing lots of industries open up over here, and we have also invested in one such concept. So what are these various spaces? I can see that very clearly in healthcare. Doctors, medical science is fast progressing, right? There is advent of machines, there is advent of robotics, there is advent of advisory. We all know that as per WHO norms, the number of doctors per 10,000 is woefully short. The number of hospital beds per 10,000 population is woefully short. So matching demand and supply and resolving this, the entire staging process. People are reaching hospitals who don't really need to be reaching hospitals, digital health management. All of this is giving rise to skill sets in the health tech sector which need to be taught. Doctors need to be reskilled as well. Similarly, financial services, as I just explained, banking, etc. We don't need the processing stuff anymore. All of that is going to go towards digital, and the government is doing a stellar job of introducing more and more digital methods, whether it was KYCs and whether it was filling up forms and all of those kind of things. All of this has been transferred online, and it is increasingly getting transferred online. So engineering, upskilling, I think all of that is completely going there. But let me touch upon an even more important aspect. Did we know that, almost 1 million out of 6 million teachers in our country, they need skilling? If the teachers aren't relevant, what will they teach the students, right? they need developmental programs. Our teachers are not getting the required training inputs. In fact, it's been recognized through many surveys that they need the teachers are themselves untrained, quite a few proportion of that. So, teacher education program. This is another space that we've identified, and we're actively looking for investing in such spaces where we are refurbishing teachers and their skill sets so that they can teach students to take on the challenges of the future. So I think this is, in a nutshell, is some of the ripe areas. I mean, one could go on for a couple of hours, but as you can see, it's quite systemic.
Great. I think it's interesting, and it's quite a wide-ranging set of points that you raised. So maybe Dr. Swarupa can talk, because maybe I'm assuming that you've done work with the government as well on some of these issues. So in your mind, how can industry work with the Indian government to actually solve this problem of skilling, especially when you look at manufacturing, where the NSDC tries to build up vocational skills? So what has been your experience with public-private partnerships, and what's worked and what's not worked in this whole area of skilling?
Let me share a brief about the skilling in India. Like in the year 2009-10, a decade ago, this institute, being a premier institution with the Ministry of MSME Government of India, has given the assignment of starting the skill programs. So national level curriculum committee was framed, and other statutory institutions under the ministry. So they have come out with a curriculum for 164 skills in the year 2009 and 10, and programs have started, and it gained the momentum, having realizing the importance of skilling. So the government has come out with a dedicated ministry in the year 2014 that we all know. Then, as you told, the NSDC, private public partnership, then NSQF, QP, SNOS, everything has come. So it was going very well. We have sector skills, so automotive sector, health sector, and telecom sector, all the sectors. We have now, I think, around 40 sectors. It is going on well. But after COVID, the scenario is entirely different. So according to me and the assignments, what we are doing at national level, and the vision of a ministry or the PMO office or the government, I think a different set of skills has to be imparted, as rightly told by Mr. Anup, to the teachers. So we are already in that mission of building the skills of various officers. So far we have done almost close to 17,000 training programs, and we built capacity of almost 6 million officers. But this teachers part, we have been doing that faculty development program in entrepreneurship and skill development, which was being offered to us by Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. But we could reach only very less number of engineering, management, and education institutions faculty. I feel actually like all the traditional universities, we have close to, I think, 1,000 universities in India now. So all these universities, we need to have a skill and entrepreneurship development department. So now we have, I think, almost 7 skill universities. Recently, one has come up in Delhi and one in Assam. So 9 universities. So every state, actually, there should be one skill university. So that whatever the skills we are talking about for domestic needs, for industry needs, international needs, in across the sectors. Now health sector is gaining a lot of importance, food processing, all these sectors, to impart the skills. These kind of universities are must in our country. And otherwise, in all the existing universities, the department is very much required. So that is one of the recommendations we have already submitted to Government of India, because as per the reports and surveys, it is told that around close to 50% of the postgraduates are unemployed, and more than 50% of the graduates are unemployed, because there is the skill gap between industry and the students who are passing out from the courses, graduation and post-graduation from the universities. There are many things to be shared, like at retail level, micro enterprise level, SHG group level, so that digital literacy has to be imparted. the financial literacy skills has to be imparted. We have signed MOU with the CII, and MasterCard is helping us to develop these modules to go across the nation. Very recently, it was launched. A pilot was launched in the Madhya Pradesh government, Maharashtra government. Honorable Industries Minister has launched this, and we have started imparting these skills in Maharashtra. So this is a long way to go. We conducted a research for Government of India after COVID. So why these MSMEs are into distress? One important reason is that they are unable to get the financial access. So earlier they could walk in physically to a financial institution, a bank, or a corporation, or even anywhere wherever funding is available. But because of lockdown, they could not go. Everything made online, and there are constraints. Our people are not so tech savvy. Majority are not using the smartphones, and even they use the smartphone, it is only for personal need, but not these kind of official requirements. So they're unable to reach a bank site, whether it is SBI or SIDB or IDBI, even Mudra, and wherever apps are available, they cannot download that app. They cannot fill in the required information because they cannot follow that English, because sometimes it is in different speech, indirect speech. So there are so many issues. This is all we have documented. So every in every segment, in every aspect, in every operation that is being done by MSMEs and an entrepreneur, so these skills are very, very important. And most importantly, when we claim that India is one of the young nations, our youth population is high, so we have to target this youth and impart the skills through education by establishing
Exactly right. I think that
and establishing
I
the
think you've
university. Yes, that has to be taken very seriously, and it should go on.
absolutely right. I think you've hit the nail on the head, and I think it's interesting that a lot of the schemes that you're talking about, I think the way we spread it to more MSMEs and they know the benefits of some of what you're doing in your organization, I think that is something we should definitely try to spread the word. But it's interesting that a lot of MSMEs and SMEs don't really even spend much time or effort training their own people internally. They say we want the skills, but they don't even train their own people. So, Samir, you had some interesting research on this aspect of the lack of training that CEOs do for their own people. So, what did the research come up with?
Yeah, thanks, Doctor, for sort of remind me of that. In fact, I've just kind of pasted a link in the handout sort of button on the right. So I welcome the audience to go through that link. It's an article that got published in Next Billion. It's an international publication, and one of my research topics was about to understand why is it that companies are talking about skilling but not committing, right? So interestingly, my research revealed two things. First is let's segment the audiences in terms of the MSMEs in two segments. One is that one which are struggling companies, and this is very valid in COVID times because a lot of companies were struggling, and those who are not struggling but are sort of having a better run than the struggling companies, right? So what my research revealed was very interesting. The struggling companies, in fact, felt the need for the skilling their individuals, but faced the resource crunch to actually decide where is it that they want to spend their dollar on. So their dollars were spent on mostly the raw materials, the firefighting things that they needed to do. And interestingly, the short term took over the long term, right? And although they knew at heart, in their hearts, that the skilling is absolutely needed for them and as well as for their employees. As a result of which, they are now caught in a vicious circle. They are constantly managing the short term. They are unable to reskill their employees or upskill their employees. They are unable to redeploy them. Now they can't fire many of them because they have been around for many, many years. So there is a problem in terms of the trade-off between the loyalty and the performance. And as a result of which, you have a workforce that is neither skilled nor you can get rid of, right? Because of the various reasons that we have. So they suffered from that. So they could not commit dollars and they could not sort of prioritize the dollars. A result of which their long-term competitiveness suffered, because of which they were not able to sort of generate enough cash for the future, because of which they are again caught in the circle of firefighting. So that's the story with the struggling companies, and that has happened with them. But interestingly, if you contrast that with the companies that were winning in spite of the troubles, I found out a very interesting phenomenon there. In spite of being in trouble, the entrepreneurs made a judicious decision to sort of save 5% or 10% of their cash for making sure that they commit to the long term, right? And this is, if they did that habit consistently, they found that they were far better prepared to actually withstand and sort of address the trauma that they receive from the external marketplace, right? So any situation wherein you're caught in a trauma and you're not able to adapt, it basically tells you two things. One is your inherent immunity system is weak, and as you know, in COVID, we all have seen that extra in the world. It's the same with the SMEs, that the SMEs did not have the enough immunity because they had not done the right things in terms of building their long-term capabilities, skilling, to be able to withstand that trauma. And I think so that was very telling. So the winning companies were able to do that. And interestingly, we found that they were able to report 5 to 6 percentage points, which is 500 to 600 basis points difference between their EBITDA margins, and a difference of as much as basically 1,000 to 1,200 basis point, which is 10% to 12 percentage points in their top line revenue growth rates, CAGRs, right? So this was a difference between the companies that really committed to the long term versus people who did not commit to the long term, right? So that is one. The second is really, I think, in terms of what we find the biggest challenge is that, like I was mentioning earlier, that they do not have the extra people to be able to manage the implementation of a lot of this. Because a lot of the good thoughts are there, intent is there, but they do not know how to govern even a simple program of reskilling, right? As a result of which, entrepreneurs' energies are invested in protecting the company, but nobody is really focusing on skilling the company as a horizontal across the functions. And that has really impacted a lot of the SMEs in India. So I think that's in summary in terms of my research sort of revealed. But I think very quickly, just two comments here before we move to the next question, is that, on the perspective of what we have also found is that there are certain across, and this goes to your earlier point that you mentioned, Doctor, we have also found in our research of having done 600 companies in India, having helped them, and in last year, 2021, basically this year, we have helped about close to 130, 140 companies. It's writing on the wall, It's basically about making sure that you have the right problem solving skills, the core thinking skills. You need to learn how to learn, and that is completely missing. And what we are doing through Wadhwani Foundation Advantage is we are empowering them with some of these skills that happen right at the top and right at the second level. So it percolates down across the organization. So it actually boils down to the basics, not really as much in terms of the domain skills. Domain skills are, of course, needed, but I think these are the horizontal skills which, to my mind, will do a lot of good to these companies in the long run.
Interesting. So I think when you talk about the type of skills and the domains, right? So when I think of, let's say, programming or accounting, those are hard skills which are repeatable and can be done. But when I look at the whole issue of how to market a company's product, build up its brand, there's no defined method, right? And it requires a lot of nuance and judgment. So, Rachana, maybe you could sort of give your thoughts on this. How would a company do skills for their own people to learn how to market properly or build the branding? It's undefined. So how does the company go about doing that?
Hi, doctor. Thanks. Am I audible? Yeah.
Yeah, you are.
So this is the biggest jigsaw puzzle in the life of any business of any scale, whether it's a multinational, he or she is also in the jigsaw puzzle, how to market themselves effectively, how to communicate with customers, how to keep their old customers happy, how to keep prospecting for new customers, and how to keep this journey going. And where are they, and how do you locate them, and how do you... Sorry, there is a little disturbance outside. Is in this one second, sorry. I'll just come back to you because I'm seeing there's something outside.
No problem. Great. So I'll actually jump to one of the audience questions. I think there's Mayur actually asked the same question probably twice. How can a solo funder or a early stage entrepreneur get access to some of the government funding schemes, especially for skilling? So maybe Dr. Swarupa, you could address that because you are familiar with government and how the government funds the schemes for skilling. So if there's Mayur who wants to get government funding, what does he do?
Yeah, Mr. Mayur, right? He can visit our website. Many programs are scheduled. He can go through our website and contact the faculty, register himself. We have been doing a very customized program these days, exclusively on MSME schemes and sector-wise, and on startups, and on incubation, and on mentoring. So they can contact us, and they can register, and they can attend the program. And we have a mentoring team. Actually, we have entrepreneurship development cell and the Center of Excellence in livelihood business incubation. Definitely will help out. Not only Mr. Mayur, whoever visits us, we are in the nation of, we are in the services of MSMEs and building the nation. They can approach us.
Thank you very much. So maybe a question for Anup before you head out. Obviously, the COVID scenario, I mean, people have been talking about till death, but sorry, wrong way of saying it. But the thing is that now when you look at the post, hoping going back to the new normal, and when you look at the way, in your mind, have the need for skills changed? Are there new skills that are needed? I think Ashutosh basically want to know what are the generic qualities that you would look for in terms of attitude and hard skills for some of the companies that you invest in, for example, across all sectors. Where's the talent coming from, and what generic skills and attitude and hard skills are you looking for the companies that you invest in?
Understand. So I think without being too generic, I think it's very important that any investor gets the confidence that you're capable of building a large business. Now, what does that take? It means, first of all, you should be dealing with a large enough problem statement in a large sector, right? And what that means is that problem statement should not be just felt by you and a few friends of yours, but it must be something which is largely felt and therefore validated, right? It must be a problem faced by a large number of people, millions of people, if possible. Once you define that problem statement, and it takes a lot of work to do that. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen over a cup of chai. And once having done that, then it comes the whole attitude or skill of going about and persevering behind what is called a minimum viable product, which acts as a solution to solving that problem for that particular target audience. And obviously, it comes with certain features and it comes with a certain price, which you fine-tune repeatedly until that feeds into a sustainable business model. In the initial phase, the business plan is going to be negative EBITDA, and that's what the funds like us invest in, because we know that you're going to be subscale, and therefore it's not going to pay for your fixed cost. Now, once you are able to achieve a product market fit, after that the growth should be no less than stellar and accelerating to such proportions that consumers want more and more of your product and you can't let enough of them in without raising further funds. And that then becomes a nice virtuous cycle. Now, all of this is easier said than done, but it requires vision, it requires definitely communication skills. Many a founder I have found, they're quite brilliant in their academic background, but if you're not able to communicate your thoughts in a succinct enough fashion, and time is getting in short supply because talent levels and benchmarks are increasing, I must share and disclose that India is on the radar of not just Indian founders, but foreign founders as well. Various large developed economies and SME ministries of those economies have an eye on India. They're sending foreign founders in to build large companies and large businesses over here, because where is the growth for those economies going to come from? India is such a large market. So you will have to now compete in a global talent market where Indians are returning to India. Indians within India are targeting both India and the world, but more, of course, India. And then foreigners are also interested in targeting India. So therefore, the game is set for obviously the best to actually bubble up to the top. So social media skills, digital marketing skills, I think all of these can be taught, all of these can be gained. But some basic skills like these need to be there, right? And then I think some skills can be picked up along the way. Leadership, a team, influencing policy, all of that, I think comes a bit later as you become much larger. So simply, I think this is what it requires in a very sort of raw and a broad stroke sort of a way. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, good. In fact, Rachana, I think good to have you back. So we were cut off halfway between your chat. So again, just addressing again the same question. So how do you develop marketing skills and branding skills in employees? And you were talking about that before the kind of.
Sure. So it goes like this. I would rather connect with the entrepreneur. And,
Right.
we all know as entrepreneurs, we are pure optimists. We know how to rack our way out in this busy and this complex jungle of any industry that the person is operating on. I would emphasize the entrepreneur or the owner to upskill himself on the digital marketing, because that's the key today. He or she gets a grip on it, then he is able to cherry pick from the available resources which skill is missing right now, and he can take the right input from that person. Otherwise, if the entire digital is outsourced to an outsider, then the business may change the positioning of what business he is into. So it's always the owner who knows where his customers are, who are the customers, how to get them, and how not to do what he is not supposed to do. He cannot outsource that onto any external party. So he upskills himself. There are immense amount of tutorials up right on YouTube, on Google, on Facebook, on so Facebook marketing, he can spend an hour, understand the gist about Facebook marketing. He's not supposed to get into the technicalities of Facebook marketing, but he or she, the owner, should understand this is how Facebook can give us results. That's it. Then he is able to drive the show. So he can spend an hour, learn Facebook. Once and for all, he knows it. He can get onto LinkedIn, learn LinkedIn. He can get onto Google Ads, go on Google Ads, understand by looking at a few videos, and understand this is how Google Ads is giving leads. And lead generation today is key to getting your next set of customers. There are no other programs that are delivering. Gone are the days of having those hundred of sales staff who went around knocking doors. There is no such sales happening anywhere. So this methodology is the only method to continuously get new customers. Is keep doing your digital marketing, keep getting leads, get somebody in office who's a good smart telecaller who can just validate those leads which are sourced from digital platforms, and the journey on his digital marketing continues. And these are not very expensive. These are very low budgeted programs. The entrepreneur needs to reskill, upskill, whatever term you call it. He needs to do it, and then he can allocate it to his team members. That's the crux of the situation.
Very good.
Thank
So I
you.
think we have time for one more question. So I'm actually going to take the question that Ashutosh asked on the Q&A and maybe flip it a bit for Samir. So Wadhwani Foundation actually has a section for entrepreneurs, Wadhwani Entrepreneur, and there's Wadhwani Opportunity, which is to build up student skills. So when you look at the skills needed to develop for entrepreneurs versus the skills needed for working professionals or employees, do you see a difference? Are these not the same thing? What's the difference?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So in the foundation, we have the entire spectrum. So Wadhwani Opportunity deals with, in fact, the students community. But I think it has, on one hand, it is goes into the curriculum of the schools. In fact, we have entered the curriculum of all the national level CBSE schools in terms of the skilling. But more importantly, they train the skills for those people at the entry level jobs. So there is a AAA program wherein the opportunity would basically has programs to train the entry level job seekers who want to become productive when they get the jobs in certain sectors like hospitality, retail, and so on and so forth, right? Whereas on the entrepreneur side, when you look at training, it has two sort of dimensions. One is what we call Advantage Program, which is what I lead, which focuses on the SME entrepreneurs and MSMEs and the direct reports, which is relevant for their company specific, but the horizontal skills. So, for example, we would teach the same skill of core thinking and problem solving to a new job seeker, but in a very elementary fashion applicable for the job role at the entry level. Whereas the same skill is taught to the SME entrepreneur, which is applicable at his level or her level. So, for example, the entrepreneur would think about the core problem-solving skills in terms of, let's say, the business is facing a competitive threat. Now, how to solve that problem of competitive threat needs to be taught. However, first they need to learn how to solve that problem in the context of the competitive threat. Whereas for the opportunity, it is in the context of how to become productive in the new at the entry level. So that's the difference, right? And the NEN, which is our National Entrepreneurship Network program, which sits in between, actually teaches the students who want to become entrepreneurs in a startup or in a new venture. So we are working with over 100 colleges in India. So their context is how to start a company, how to launch a real life company, and they would undergo this skills training in the context of that, right? So you see the contexts are different, the nature, the name of the skill is the same, but the pedagogy and the way you would train and the learning outcomes are different for the learner profiles because the learning use case is different.
Very good. I think we just have time to slip in just one last question, which has been sent by Kanchan. She's asking, is there any platform to get or market the product for registered businesses, which for MSME? So I think beyond, let's say, Amazon or Flipkart or let's say all the e-commerce platforms. So maybe I could ask both Samir and Dr. Swarupa, from the MSME organization side or maybe from Wadhwani side, are there any platforms that you guys have that will help to promote the products or services of startup entrepreneurs? Maybe either of you want to answer, that'd be great.
You want to go ahead first, Doctor?
I think your mic is off, Dr. Super. We can't hear you.
Can't hear you.
Yeah, like the previous answer for the question raised by Mr. Mayur. Yeah, there are several platforms. We can put these entrepreneurs, so based on their specific need, to the relevant platform. See, we have been working, that's what I shared. We have been build the capacity of international executives representing almost 150 countries, our Indian officers and faculty, and we are also in the clusters, rural places, like a very rural place with handloom, handicrafts, and agri-based startups. Also, we are helping. So it is to the entrepreneur or would-be entrepreneur to identify their need and come to us, or send us a mail, or post on a Twitter or an IMSME handle. Definitely, so we will help you with all the skills what you are looking for, and most importantly, the entrepreneurship skills and related to finance, related to mentors. So we have pool of mentors with us and hand holding also. So most of the sponsored programs from our ministry, our Ministry of Humanity Affairs, our MSDE, our Ministry of Agriculture, because we get several programs from the ministries. So for all these programs, hand holding is part of the program up to 3 months, and we have a target to establish some of the entrepreneurs into wage employment or self-employment. So that's how we cater. So to end solution, please approach us, write to us, visit us. We are open 24/7. So come to us and take the advantage of the system in place set by the government and set by all the statutory institutions. Otherwise, we have large network across the nation. If we are unable to fulfill that very specific requirement, definitely we'll link you with the institution or the individual. So where definitely your problem or issue is resolved. So that I can assure you. All right.
Thank you very much. Samir, a couple of minutes. What does Wadhwani Advantage have to offer? What advantages to entrepreneurs do you have to offer?
Sure, absolutely. So just to relate to this question, we have a platform which we are building, which is AI enabled. And the whole intention of that platform is to make sure that both the communities, the SME community, MSME community on one hand, that requires to be skilled. And on the other, there is a community of skills providers, right? So what we want to do is to make sure that there is a match that happens in terms of the skill definition and the skills provider. And that platform is supposed to build that functionality in terms of making sure that those who are skill providers can even advertise and market on our platform, because that's their demonstrating to the outside world that they have the ability to basically fulfill the requirements of skilling which arise from the MSME sector. So this platform today is currently the beta stage, and the platform that we have today right now already has a curated network of 140 advisors who come from different domains and skills. So if you belong to a community of skill provider, you're welcome. There is an app both in Android and Apple environment. Download it, and you will be able to sort of see that, and then you can write to us in terms of how to sort of advertise or market on that platform. If you are somebody who requires the skills to be done to your company or your enterprise, you're welcome again to register yourself as an SME, and then we could take it forward from there. So that's a quick sort of short answer to your question. But I think eventually we want to make it up to a platform whereby it also becomes a community building for a lot of the people who are in the skill space, because every stakeholder needs to contribute his or her own expertise.
Thank you, Samir. I think this has been a power-packed 1 hour with a lot of insights from all the panelists. I think I think there's a lot of value that's been given to the audience members, and hopefully this recording will be available through Industry Live later on. So, Sneha, back to you.
Thank you so much. I mean, I must add, first and foremost, this has been such an enlightening conversation for all of us. And before we go away and before it to go, there's a quick question that has been there for a while now from Ashutosh in the comment section. I just want to take that up. In times like COVID, what are the more generic qualities one should look for, more in terms of attitude and hard skills? And to add, before we go forward, I want to add to this from your conversation today is that first and foremost, Ashutosh, seriously commit yourself to exploring new opportunities, new skills, as Samir says, and as Rachana says, do it optimistically to start off with. Going forward, I would like the panelists go ahead and give one last bit of advice before we call this session.
Yeah, I think one quick word on this one, and I will also wrap it up based on what I think the one-line summary is that please understand skilling is not a choice; it's a necessity. When I say it's a necessity, you just have to basically commit to it because in psychology there is this theory, and I want to share this with you. It's about learning anxiety and survival anxiety. If you don't have survival anxiety, they are to trade off with each other. So only if you have survival anxiety, you will tend to learn. And species across the million years have actually done the same. And please be sure that if you don't commit yourself to skilling and learning, the survival is at stake. I can assure you of that.
Great. So, Rachana, any thoughts? Last line of advice.
Hi, sure. So here's a little thought I would like to leave behind with all our friends here. Stay and keep your empowerment in you to stay from 0 to 100. You rise every day from 0 to 100. If you're a true entrepreneur, you shouldn't get dejected by what's the challenge around. You will find an answer for yourself, and you will have immense amount of opportunities if you have this attitude within you. That's the giveaway. Thank
Thank you,
you.
Rachana.
Thank you.
Dr. Swarupa, your thoughts. One line of advice for the audience.
Yeah. Uh, Actually, a stage is set, a platform is there, system is created by the government. It has to be explored by individual. So, where to go, what to do, how to do, when to do. So, and that guidance we can, provide. And you have to take it, the help rendered by the government, and move ahead. And without an entrepreneur, there is no MSME sector. So the MSMEs can make proud of this nation, and we can reduce the imports and we can increase the exports. I'm sure about this. Thank you very much and wish you all the best.
Great. So I think I'll just give one line of advice, and I think it's funny. The thing is that this also related to the question that I think Mayur just came up with: is that any of you guys want to invest in $1 billion business idea? The thing is that at the end of the day, is that the only one who can help you is yourself as entrepreneur. The thing is that you want to develop the skills, develop it yourself. There are a lot of resources there. You want to raise funding. There are a lot of funding resources, but make sure you're worth funding. At the end of the day, the environment's going to be totally volatile, like you keep on saying. The question is that you have to depend more on yourself, and of course use the resources that you can see on this panel and around. But the thing is that there's no reason why you can't be successful through what you have on hand. And I think that at the end of the day, it's all up to you. Don't depend on somebody else to help you just blindly. You got to do it yourself.
Wow,
Thank you.
this has been inspiring. One last word would just be, as everybody here on the panel says, remember, improvement begins with I. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Thank
very
you very
much,
much.
gentlemen and ladies. It's been an honest pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Sneha.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Samir.
everyone.
Thank you, Super. Thanks, Rachana. Thanks. Thank you, guys. Bye bye.